So one of the things we first did was to get an exemplar Lexus. What does exemplar mean? It just means I got the same exact year, make, and model vehicle as Miss Reed. So Miss Reed's vehicle is on the left-hand side, taken during my inspection. And then I found this exact same year, make, model, manufactured at the same plant, everything Lexus in Texas. So even though it looks like a European plate, it's a Texas plate. Purchased the vehicle, had it shipped out to California. Verified that the Lexus is in fact the one I got, the same exact one as Miss Reed's. These are all the standard equipment. Miss Reed's is on the left, my exemplar is on the right.
Having an exemplar vehicle, you could take the data or modules from one vehicle, place them in the other, or actually take the data from one and copy it into the other. And you can make the data pretty much anything you want. Both chips sets, both modules are the exact same numbers. They're built only a few days apart.
So an exemplar vehicle is a 2021 Lexus LX570 that is as close to the same trim and features that the subject vehicle was.
Why did you want a similar but very separate vehicle to do testing before you tried to crack into the SD card?
Sure. So, it's kind of multiple reasons. First, to validate that the process that we're theorizing to recover data is viable. But also, this is a vehicle that there's no documentation on as far as the data that is stored and the data, how it's recorded and what it means. So as well as being able to validate that process, we also wanted to do testing and create some of our own data and known data sets on a vehicle, so that when we got the data, we were able to look at it and compare it to our known data sets, and we were able to validate and correctly interpret what that data means. We'll go out and rent a vehicle if we can and do our own testing to see what is that vehicle recording. And how accurate is that data? So, if you've got say for instance, a vehicle that's recording your door events, so anytime you open your door, how accurate is the timestamp for that? Well, we've a lot of hashing goes on into, anytime we get an image, we'll hash it that way to kind of prove that we're not changing any data during our testing or during our research, and just proving that it hasn't changed from the time that we got it off vehicle.
Able to differentiate when that trigger occurred in a relationship to an event?
There's a few different ways. If the vehicle is equipped with a navigation system, you will have a time and date stamp for when the particular trigger occurred. So if you know the time and date of your crash, that makes it relatively simple. If you do not have a navigation system, unfortunately, you will not have that time and date stamp. The thing is that you may have ignition cycles, but these vehicles have more than one cycle counter, and so the cycle counts in your data may not match the cycle counts in your EDR data. And that doesn't mean that it's not related, it just means that there's two different cycle counters for some reason that they're using.
Based on the TechStream data alone, found in that one spot, can you tell from the data in the TechStream alone what time the power was turned on?
No, not alone. It simply tells you how long it's been on. It doesn't necessarily immediately tie it back to a clock time. You need additional information. What that TechStream data shows is matching a 3-point turn on that Cedar Crest Street. So we have the vehicle motion, the timing data, consistent with the interview statements about making a turn, 3-point turn. That's the ship position. So that's looking, we start off going forward right here. And you can see at the start of the simulation, we're going about 9.94 miles an hour. And then as you start a 3-point turn, you generally start, in this case, if you're going to the left, with the left turn.
Doing a normal 3-point turn in the snow at nighttime in the dark. Remember, she's got dark tinted windows. There's no way you would turn in and turn the steering wheel completely to the left, start your backup, and then gun the throttle to 50% while you're turning the steering wheel to the other lock. I mean, the steering wheels can turn completely the opposite direction now as she's gunning the throttle 50%. If you look, when she starts the turn, it's completely to the left, and then as she's backing up, it's completely as far as the steering wheel will go to the right while she's applying 50% throttle. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
A simulation program, the speeds, the shifting, the distance. Keep in mind we only have that 10-second window of data, and the steering angle for that Lexus. That's what it indicates.
There is no way you would back out of this driveway with those steering angles at night in the snow. There's no reason to. It's a big driveway. You would turn in normally, slowly. It's slanted downhill. You would not gun the throttle to 50% while you're turning to full lock. The car would probably try to spin around on you, but it has traction control, so that would stop it. But it just wouldn't happen in this kind of driveway at night when you cannot see out the back windows because you have tinted windows and it's snowing. It just wouldn't happen. Why would she? Let's talk about the modules in the car for a minute. If they had an exemplar Lexus, the exact same model, same build, same everything, it was only built a few days later, all of the modules have the same part numbers, the same software numbers, you could actually swap the modules between those two vehicles and make the data whatever you want. The mileage wouldn't matter. It would go by key cycles. The car could have 100,000 miles on it and have less key cycles than a car with 11,000 miles. It is because the key cycles is how many times you start the vehicle. If you drove the vehicle on the highway a lot, it would have less key cycles than somebody who lived in the city. So all you would need is the exact same vehicle, and you could swap the modules. The mileage wouldn't matter because you can change it in TechStream. You can change all of the modules between the cars and reprogram them to fit whatever car. Basically, if you bought a car with less key cycles but more miles, you can change the miles. There's a big problem with people changing miles on cars, and it's easier now than it's ever been. All you would need to do is hook the TechStream data software up to it, and then you can reprogram the modules to whatever you want. And if the other car had less TechStream events, then you could create those events up to 1162, and that 1162 event, you could make it whatever you wanted. And no one would ever know unless they were watching with the vehicle while it was being done. I 1000% think that key cycle data was from the tow truck driver, or they programmed the other module and swapped it between vehicles. Because there's no way to tell what they've done. And now that the infotainment center don't work on Karen's car, it's completely possible that they actually went in and changed the raw data just using the exemplar data and then copied it and put it into the other module. It would be that simple. Let's change subjects for a minute and talk about the ring camera video from 5:07 a.m. If you look closely at Karen's car, you will notice the suspension on it is lowered right now, probably because the battery is dead. And also, you will notice the rear window is part way down. That is to make the tinted windows not look as dark. Here is another view showing how low the suspension is. The front and back of the vehicle should be a lot higher than that, probably about 2.5 to 3 inches. And I would suspect they did that to make it look lower to the ground, so it would look easier to hit John's elbow or arm, and the back spoiler to hit, what he was saying, in the face, which wouldn't happen because that spoiler sticks in too far. This is the before she made impact picture, And I will show the after here in a minute, but I want to go over a couple of things on this first. This is a close-up of the rear of his car. You will notice how blurry it is. They are always blurry when we have a close-up showing something important like the tail light or their damage to the rear of his car. Notice that you couldn't make anything out in that, but I can still see the blur spots. Both of these pictures show where the rear of the car is hit at. The upper spot is where the taillight hit. The lower one is where the bumper hit. And both bumpers are flexible, so they would kind of push in and the taillight would make contact 100%. You have to ask yourself, why would they use these ridiculous 3D looking scans and not use the real vehicles when they paid all of this money for an exemplar vehicle to do the testing, but then they use these ridiculous looking pictures? It's because both vehicles have rubber bumpers or urethane bumpers, and they will both give and flex in when they hit each other. The taillight would hit the back of the car and crack, and the Lexus could pull away and there would be very little damage, if any. Because it was snowing, it would act as a lubricant between the two urethane bumpers and would not leave very much of any scratching. This is the supposed angle, which is probably correct, of where it would hit. But you can tell the back corner of Karen's car sticks out pretty far, especially the taillight. With both bumpers kind of flexed in, the taillight would definitely make contact and crack. It's actually comical that this is the view they use with the laser 3D scans. It looks like the back of the truck is crashed. I mean, it does not help whatsoever. But notice how the back of it looks like it's kind of leaning down. I can't believe they would even show this junk science. There was no need. There was not a fatal accident involving two cars. And then when they show these two pictures, they show the Toyota or the Lexus backed up to the Chevy Traverse with about an 8-inch gap in between them. But the one thing they don't show is the suspension level on the Lexus. The front suspension could be lower, making the back go up higher, or it could be in snow mode, which is going to raise the whole vehicle. Either way, we don't see it. Also, the Traverse could be raised up in the back a little bit. It could have no gas in it. Here we go with another angle. You can see if the back of the Lexus was a little bit lower, it would make perfect contact. If it doesn't make contact the way it sits right there. But his pictures are deceiving. You can't tell where anything's at, suspension-wise. And you can tell they would definitely hit and make contact. If the Lexus has a full tank of gas and the Traverse is empty or close to it, then that's going to change the height of both vehicles. Also, why doesn't he have the light in the vehicle to show that it won't hit? You could move them closer together without them touching to prove the point. Yet here we are with a gap in between them. And him showing that reflector light on the bottom of the bumper, that doesn't even matter. It wouldn't even come into play because the vehicle is not hitting at an angle where that would even matter. We know both vehicles hit. We know both vehicles have urethane rubber bumpers. And we know that both vehicles have energy absorbing bumper underneath the urethane bumper cover skin. So both bumpers would bounce back. And we also know that somebody came and repaired John's car within the next couple of days after the 29th of January 2022. So yeah, from this angle you can get a good view. If the front suspension is lowered and the back suspension is raised, then that will change the angle and make the light not hit. And you can change the suspension settings with the Toyota TechStream or the Bosch interface that he was using. You can actually raise or lower the front and rear independently with the OBD tool. So without showing the side view of the cars together, we don't know. Now finally, 34 Fairview. Look at the curve in that street. In the dark, in the snow, with tinted windows, you're not going to floor your car in reverse. And then we've got that little problem right there with the security camera looking directly in that direction, and that camera goes between 135 and 165 degrees field of view. Look at that curve. That is not straight by any stretch of the imagination. There's no way somebody's going to floor it going back that way and hit someone just standing there waiting to be hit. It just wouldn't happen. And we're getting closer to where they found him, right around the flagpole area, a little bit after it. They're wanting to make it sound like it's closer to the fire hydrant. It wasn't. And looky there, the camera is still visible. Even go up to right here. What do you know? The camera is still visible right there where John would have been. Imagine that. I'm going to upload the rest of it tomorrow. Thank you. I really appreciate everyone that has subscribed to my channel.